how was your journey from an associate to becoming the CFO of a premier organization? A very, very tough position to get to, a very, very tough company to get to. So, how was your journey? If you can just elaborate on it.
Yeah, so Umar, let me quickly give some background to myself as well and kind of an introduction. So I'm originally from Quetta, and the like Pakistan is known for Karachi, Islamabad, maybe Lahore. You can add Peshawar as well, but Quetta becomes very remote when it comes to opportunity and scale and all. So just wanted to share that piece, which is me coming from such a small, a relatively smaller city and making it big. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And by making it big, I mean what I wanted to achieve. Everyone has their own goals, and success means different for everyone else. But if I am able to achieve what I really wanted to achieve, I can say everyone can do it with limited opportunities that were available to me. Anyways, so I did my master's from Islamabad in NUST, and I've seen some hard times with regards to uh, the availability of funds, my education. So I really had to go with some scholarships, some loans, and all. But I just want to tell you one thing. This all helped me in my interview with Procter and Gamble. And I would always crib about how I am not privileged enough, while I see many privileged folks. Like if you, especially if you are in LUMS, IBA, let's say, and if you belong to good homes, life is relatively easy for you versus coming from a less privileged home. And I would always crib about it or feel bad about it or always say that I think I have a handicap. But you know what? I realized when I was delivering my interview with Procter& Gamble, that was the day when the interviewer started to ask me about my experiences and my character and who I am, because at the end of the day, people don't just hire for skills. Rather, people hire for attitude and passion. And I have the saying as well that, for instance, if I have to hire, I'd rather hire someone who has the right passion, right attitude, because I can teach them, let's say, finances, debit, credit, NPV, and all. But if someone knows all this, but he or she doesn't have the right passion and character, it is very hard for me to teach them. So the point I want to make is if you have hard time, it is your asset and just use it like anything. So when I was in the interview, I would speak about how I couldn't afford my education and how I managed to still get good education despite not being able to afford it. And for the interviewer, this was like, wow, because I was already ahead of the curve in terms of others that particular interviewer was interviewing. And I left a very lasting impression on that individual. And hence, I think that was one of the reasons I got hired, apart from other skills that I had. But skills is easy to have. All I'm saying is if you have a hard time, don't feel bad about it. It's your asset, use it. And I used it in Canada as well later, and I'll talk about it. Anyways, so coming to P&G, I got hired, and I think that was one element of me getting hired, which is I made use of my hard time and played it well in the interview and in the hiring process. Now, when I joined P&G, as you rightly said as well, when I looked at the head of finance, the CFO for P&G Pakistan, I was like, if I have this role, that would be it. Like if I get to this position, that is when I'll say I am done with living life. But then, it's a hedonic treadmill, like you get something and then you're like, okay, what's the next thing? So I think that kind of happened to me eventually, but that was a big deal for me. Since the question that you have here, which is associate to CFO, looking back, the things I've learned and I want to share is number one, for the first 1 to 2 years, forget about being smart. You just need to be a donkey, like work hard like a donkey. Whatever is, if there is someone who's, you can reach out to someone. If they're doing some work, say how I can contribute. If there is a project that you have nothing to do, just see how you can take part of that project. If you're doing an assignment and you see something else being done on the side and you need some help, you can just take that assignment, just jump on it and do as much work as possible, as hard work as possible, without thinking of whether it's in the right direction or not. For the first 1 to 2 years, all you need is to develop an equity. That whenever there's an issue, there's a concern, and people know there is someone who will put all the hours, all the energy to get things done, to get the work done. So build that equity. For the first 2 years, just focus on building that equity. Now, what this means is it won't be 9 to 5, by the way, for you. it will be 9 to 10. So you really have to, or maybe 8 to 10. You'd have to work 8 to 10 for the first 1 or 2 years. But I think it's okay to do so because people do argue about work-life balance. But in those first 2 years, you really don't need work-life balance because, like, I assume you're not married, or if you're married, you're newly married, or you're starting your life. So there is more responsibility to come in future. This is your time to just invest as much as possible. Don't think about whether this is the right project, this is the right work, is this the right individual, and that I'm taking work with from. Another thing that I say is for your manager, see what your manager is not good at. And there are a lot of things, and it would be relatively things which are non-strategic tasks. So let's say making slides, making a deck, writing a document, all of this stuff your manager might not be good at because he or she is good at doing the big stuff. Whatever they're not good at, just take it from them and say, I will do it. Make the life easy for your manager. Make it as easy as possible. Again, this would be crappy work, you just making decks or you just making presentations. But remember, it is only for the first or the second year. So work as hard as possible for the first 2 years. Now, once the 2 years are gone and you've developed that equity where people go like hardworking equals to Behrouz. Once you get that equity, the second piece that you move into is working smartly. Now, this is where you try to hack the corporate code. I always say this, like giving GMAT or SAT is not about how much you know about SAT. It's about how you can crack the code of SATs or GMAT, like which question to spend more time on, which question to spend less time on, how to move fast, where to hold on, and so on and so forth. So as long as you're strategic about giving the test, it is okay if you don't know every answer in the test. But if you're strategic about it, you can still deliver it. Similarly, there is a hack to the corporate world as well. And let me say it out as well. Like, for instance, you will not find every time the most competent person in your mind getting promoted. That is not how it will happen. There will be less competent people who will still get promoted and still go to high levels. And the reason because they understand what is required to get promoted or get up or go up. So if you continue to be in the hard work mindset beyond 2 years, then you will struggle because you'll be putting more hours and you will not make that ladder up. So you have to switch your mindset after 2 years and say, okay, now I will start working smartly. And I'll give you some examples. Number one is building connections. So people say, okay, I am the guy who work hard and I just do 9 to 5 and I get up and I do my job best. That won't cut the bill. You'll have to build connections. You have to find the right people who have some sort of influence, little bit, on your career. Make them your mentor. Seek advice from them. And this is something I say as well, which is especially when you're stuck in your career, you seek advice from someone and make someone a mentor who has slight influence in your career as well. Because when someone gives you an advice and says, Behrouz, I think you should do this, now they get emotionally invested in you because they've given you an advice. And they want to make sure that that advice works for you. So let's say I go to someone and I say, you know what, I'm not getting promoted for past 2 years. And I don't know what I'm doing. And they go like, okay, you know what, you need to work on that particular project. If you work on that particular project or in that particular team, you have better chance of getting promoted. Now, when I work on that project, he or she sees me taking their advice. And now what they need to do is they need to also work on me or in the system to make sure that that particular advice does wonders for me. So they will go behind my back and make sure to call out that, see, Behrouz is working on that particular project and he's doing such a great job. And he came to me for advice. He really wants to get promoted and all. And hence, they will create that influence in the organization for me to go up. Another example I'll give you is if and when possible, line up your projects closer to your performance review date. And the benefit there is, it may not be possible every time, but there is a recency effect. Whenever you go in a people performance review, all you talk about is what happened in the last 3 months. No one talks about, let's say it's December, no one talks about what happened in Jan. Even if you delivered the best project in Jan, people will forget. People will remember the crappy work you did in November or October. So you have to line up your best work around October, November, December to get benefit of that people review process. Similarly, another example of cracking the code. And again, the cracking the code piece that I'm saying is maybe slightly different for different organizations as well, or different industries. But this is what I've kind of observed in the organizations I've worked. So the second is asking for feedback at the right time. So there are two kinds of feedback you ask for. One is when you really want to learn and want to improve, which is very important. And I think you should always do it and always try to see what are the things you can do better and what are the things you can learn. But then there is a feedback that you need for it to impact your performance review, your salary, your rating, your promotion. How do you generate that positive feedback? So every time you do something good, and with a business partner, with any other stakeholder who's not your direct manager, once you've delivered something good, you just go to them and say, "Can you give me some feedback?" And the day you've then done something good, and you ask for that feedback, what is the response that the particular individual will give you? They'll say, "Wow, great work! You're so good, and you're good. You've done great job. And I just saw you in this project that you delivered. It was such a great thing." Now, what has happened is, as they've given you this feedback, they've also registered this feedback for themselves in their mind for you. So previously, they have not given you a thought. They didn't think about you because a lot of time people don't think about everyone. It's only when you ask them, "Can you give me some feedback on Behrouz?" And then they go like, "Okay, give me a day or two and let me think about it." When they say "let me think about it," is because they have not thought about you. But if you ask them for feedback in the good times, whenever you deliver something good, they'll start to register those good stuff about you. So next time, let's say come December and my manager goes to them and says, "Can you give me some feedback on Behrouz because I'm going in a people performance review with him?" And what will they do? They'll open their notes in their mind and they'll take out all the notes that they took during the year every time you were coming to them saying, "Give me feedback in good times." And since they were all good feedbacks, they will just copy paste whatever they have in their mind and they'll deliver that to your manager. And suddenly, voila, you'll have like all the good feedback that you really wanted in your people performance review. Now, I say that this with the caution is because that doesn't mean you just stick to breaking the code around the feedback. You also need to improve because there could be real opportunities which may become a roadblock later. So if you just put a blind eye to it and you always just keep good feedback around you, you may come into a spot where maybe you're doing good for 1-2 years, but then there will be a roadblock. So make sure you're honest with your manager. You seek how you can improve things with your manager. But these are the areas where when you've done something good, just make sure you kind of make use of it, make news around it. So these are the kind of things I recommend to people, which is start with working hard, 2 years, develop that equity that you're the hardworking worker guy. And then comes the smart work, which is develop how you can hack the system or the corporate code. Not hack the system, and don't get it in the wrong way. It's not like cheating. It's just like what is required for you to grow.
Great, especially the point that you mentioned, just make your manager's life easier. That's something I think every 2 months I write on my LinkedIn, because I've been working in HR, people come to me and they ask, "Yeah, maybe promotion, why isn't it happening? What are the issues? Why am I not getting that rating that I deserve?" And I tell them, "Yeah, if your manager is can't depend on you, if your manager has to work extra hard, even after having you in the team, and then that probably means that you are not that beneficial to the manager." So that your point, that spot on, especially with other points as well. But this is something that covers everything. Just make your leadership's life easier.
If I can add one more thing, Umar, on this, I also have a video on my channel on this, which I think is a skill, which is how to manage your manager, and which is a skill in itself. And it has a lot of elements, but one element which you just mentioned as well, and I talk, which is to make life easier. Another element in that is whenever you go to your manager with a problem, always share the solution as well,
Mm.
which is again making their life easy. And one more thing I also say, which is always praise your manager in front of your manager's manager. Now, I don't mean you just go about lying about it. Like if your manager is really bad and you just don't feel like it from the core of your heart, then don't do it. But if there are like pluses and minuses, but generally speaking, he or she is a good manager, always praise them. Always make your manager look good, so they can. It comes back. They will always know. They won't know exactly who said what, but they will always know what happened and something went out or some feedback went out. And second is when you make them look good, they will invest in you more. They will invest in you more. They will put more effort in developing you because it's just reciprocation that will eventually happen. So, I strongly believe it's a big skill of being able to know how to manage your manager. And these are the elements to it.
What was your journey like? Like, how long was it from an entry level to the CFO at Procter and Gamble?
Yeah, it took me a total of 10 years, slightly a couple of months, weeks less, if you call it, but I would round it to 10 years. And I would say I was somewhat lucky, as in there is always part of luck as well, right? In all of this, like you have to be in the right spot at the right time. So luck was surely the part. But apart from that, all the hard work, the smart work, I ended up being one of the fastest growing individuals in finance in the region.